When Enigma's perfect security shattered, this is a cinematic, narrative-driven YouTube script about the M4 Enigma breakthrough during WW2s. The script targets approximately 30 minutes of narration, with immersive storytelling, specific details, and chronological progression through the turning point of the Battle of the Atlantic. The opening, Mediterranean darkness, October 30th, 1942. 11:47 p.m., Mediterranean Sea, 70 miles north of Port Said. The HMS Petard cuts through Blackwater, her bow slicing the Mediterranean swell into white foam that glows phosphorescent in the moonless night. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Mark Thornton grips the rail, his knuckles white. Below decks, the ASDIC operator's voice crackles through the intercom. Contact bearing 270, range 800 yards, moving slow. U-559 is dying. Depth charges have shattered her pressure hull. Captain Lieutenant Hans Heitmann knows his boat has minutes, maybe less. In the control room, seawater sprays from fractured pipes. The emergency lighting flickers. Men scramble in the red glow, their boots splashing through rising water. Heitmann gives the order every U-boat commander dreads: prepare to surface, destroy all confidential materials. But there's no time. When U-559 breaks the surface at 11:51 p.m., her conning tower emerges into searchlight glare. The Petard's guns are already trained on her. Heitmann and his crew pour out of the hatches, diving into the oil-slicked water. They expect to see their boat sink within moments, taking Germany's most precious secret, the M4 Enigma machine and its codebooks, to the bottom of the Mediterranean. They don't expect Lieutenant Anthony Fasson. Fasson hits the water from the Petard's deck, swimming hard toward the wallowing U-boat. Behind him, able seaman Colin Grazier follows. Tommy Brown, just 16 years old and technically too young for combat, is third into the water. The U-boat is settling fast, her stern already submerged, air hissing from her ruptured hull. Every man aboard the Petard knows what happens when submarines go down. The pressure waves, the suction, the implosion that can pull swimmers to their deaths. Fasson climbs the conning tower anyway. Inside U-559, the scene is apocalyptic. Water rushes through the open hatches, cascading down the ladder into the control room. Fasson drops through, landing in waist-deep water. Grazier follows. They wade forward through the chaos. Overturned equipment, floating documents, the acrid smell of chlorine gas mixing with diesel fuel. In the captain's quarters, Fasson finds what British naval intelligence has been desperate to obtain for 8 months: the M4 codebooks, wooden boxes containing rotors, and encrypted key tables marked Geheim, secret. Brown waits at the conning tower hatch, calling down, "She's going, get out!" Fasson and Grazier pass materials up through the chain, boxes, books, anything that looks important. Brown loads his arms, passes items to sailors in a launch boat alongside. The submarine's angle steepens. Water roars louder inside the hull. Fasson goes deeper, reaching for one more box, one more document that might help Bletchley Park. The bow lifts. U-559's stern slides beneath the surface. Brown scrambles up through the conning tower hatch and leaps. The suction catches him, pulling him under, but he fights to the surface. Fasson and Grazier are still inside. At 12:16 a.m. on October 31st, U-559 disappears beneath the Mediterranean, taking Lieutenant Anthony Fasson and able seaman Colin Grazier with her. But on the deck of the launch boat, wrapped in Tommy Brown's soaking jacket, are the documents that will break the Unbreakable code and turn the Atlantic into a graveyard for the Kriegsmarine. The Confidence. Kriegsmarine's Unbreakable Shield. February 1st, 1942. Lorient, France. U-boat headquarters, Kernevel. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz stands before a map of the Atlantic, a thin smile on his face. Coloured pins mark his wolf packs, red clusters along the American coast, scattered formations in the mid-Atlantic gap, hunters waiting off Gibraltar. Beside him, Konteradmiral Eberhard Gott, his chief of operations, traces convoy routes with a wooden pointer. The Americans are sailing with their lights on, Gott says, barely suppressing satisfaction. Their coastal cities refuse blackouts. We can see merchant silhouettes against the shore from 5 kilometers, Dönitz nods. He's been planning this since 1940, Operation Paukenschlag, the drumbeat that will hammer Allied shipping into oblivion. But Paukenschlag is more than tactical surprise. It rests on a technological revolution that makes his Wolfpack tactics unstoppable, the M4 Enigma machine. In the cipher room down the corridor, Funkmeister Werner Schilling sits before the new machine. It looks similar to the older 3-rotor models, the wooden case, the brass rotors, the lamp board that illuminates letters. But the M4 has a 4th rotor, a Zusatzwalzer that multiplies the possible settings from 159 billion to 2.1 quadrillion combinations. Every midnight new key tables arrive by courier in sealed envelopes marked Geheimsache, top secret. Schilling sets his rotors according to the daily Kenngruppen, identification groups, and begins encoding the morning's operational orders. The British, Dönitz knows, broke the older 3-rotor Enigma in 1941. The government code and cipher school at Bletchley Park, he's read the intelligence reports about it, was reading German naval traffic with remarkable speed. Convoy routing changed minutes after his wolf packs were positioned. Merchant ships zigzagged away from ambush points as if warned by clairvoyance. The British called it special intelligence. Dönitz called it a crisis. But the M4 changed everything. On February 1st, 1942, every U-boat in the Atlantic switched to the new system. The 4-rotor machines were distributed to operational boats only, submarine crews, bases like Lorient and Brest, the headquarters at Kernevel. Surface vessels kept the 3-rotor models. The Kriegsmarine designated the 4-rotor network Triton. Allied codebreakers would call it Shark, and for the first time since 1939, German naval communications went completely dark to British intelligence. Dönitz watches his operations room staff move pins across the map. U-66, U-109, U-130, U-123, U-125, Reinhard Hardigan's boats, closing on the American coast. In 48 hours, they'll strike. And unlike previous operations, the Allies won't see them coming. The M4 has created an invisibility cloak across the entire Atlantic theatre. How confident are we? Dönitz asks Scott. The cryptographers say it would take every mathematician in Britain a century to break M4, Gott replies. The fourth rotor multiplies the key space by a factor of 13,000. Even if they captured a machine, they'd need the daily keys, and we change those keys every 24 hours. And what neither Dönitz nor Gott knows is that in rural Buckinghamshire, 60 miles northwest of London, a mansion called Bletchley Park has gone blind. The codebreakers there, mathematicians, linguists, chess champions recruited from universities, are staring at intercepts they cannot read. The M4 traffic arrives in encrypted 5-letter groups that make no sense. They're bombs. Electromechanical machines designed to test Enigma settings are useless. The fourth rotor has locked them out. Hut 8, the naval section at Bletchley Park, goes into crisis mode. Alan Turing, the mathematician who broke the earlier Enigma, assembles his team. They need not just the machine, they captured 3-rotor Enigmas from U-110 in 1941, but the specific keys, the rotor wirings, the recognition tables that tell operators how to encode message preambles. Without these physical documents, mathematical analysis alone will fail. But that knowledge is locked inside U-boats thousands of miles away, protected by tons of steel and 50 meters of Atlantic seawater. The slaughter, second happy time, January 14th, 1942, 02:37 a.m., 40 miles southeast of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan peers through U-123's periscope, watching the tanker Nornes sail past. She's fully lit, red and green running lights, deck lights illuminating her cargo derricks, even the glow from her bridge windows. Against the lights of coastal North Carolina behind her, she's a perfect silhouette. Hardigan doesn't need to calculate range or deflection angle. This is target practice. Rohr eins, los, Hardigan orders. Tube 1, fire. The G7E torpedo leaves U-123 with a compressed air hiss, its electric motor propelling it at 30 knots toward the Nornes. 45 seconds later, the explosion tears through the tanker's midship section. A column of water and flame erupts 200 feet into the air. Within minutes, Nornes breaks in half, both sections sinking within sight of the American coast. This is Hardigan's 5th kill in 4 days. Operation Paukenschlag, Drumbeat, has begun exactly as Dönitz planned. 5 Type 9 U-boats reached American waters in January. U-66, U-109, U-123, U-125, U-130. They found a target-rich environment that defied belief. American coastal shipping sailed independently, without escorts, without convoys, without even basic blackout discipline. Merchant captains used peacetime routes. Radio operators transmitted unencrypted position reports. Cities from New York to Miami refused to dim their lights. Tourism and commerce took priority over military necessity. The U-boats slaughtered them. Hardigan's U-123 sinks 8 ships in 2 weeks. Ernst Kahl's in U-130 accounts for 6. By the end of January, German submarines have destroyed 43 Allied vessels totaling 200,000 tons. February is worse. 65 ships, 300,000 tons. March, 86 ships, nearly 500,000 tons. The Americans call it the second happy time, a bitter echo of the 1940s slaughter off Ireland and Scotland when the fall of France gave U-boats unprecedented access to Atlantic hunting grounds. But this time, the Allies cannot respond. In London, the Admiralty's Operational Intelligence Centre, the OIC, tracks U-boat positions through radio direction finding and traffic analysis. But without reading the actual message contents, they're working blind. Commander Roger Wynne, who runs the submarine tracking room, can identify that U-123 is transmitting from a position east of Cape Hatteras. He cannot read Hardigan's operational reports, cannot see the convoy attack plans, cannot decrypt the weather reports that tell him where wolf packs will concentrate. The M4 blackout is complete. At Bletchley Park, Alan Turing and his team work 16-hour days trying to break shark. They have the three-rotor bombs, but adapting them for four rotors requires building additional rotor banks, rewiring circuits, testing millions of settings. Even with the bombs, they need a crib, a known piece of plain text that appears in the encrypted message. Without cribs, the bombs have nothing to search for, and without breaking the daily keys, every new day's traffic starts the analysis over from zero. The tonnage losses mount. In April, U-boats sink 132 ships. May, 120 ships. June, 121 ships. The rate of destruction exceeds shipbuilding capacity. If the trend continues, Britain will be starved into submission by 1943. The war might be lost not through military defeat, but through mathematical impossibility. The inability to replace sunk merchant tonnage faster than submarines can destroy it. Dönitz, watching from Kerneval, believes he's winning. His daily operational orders, encrypted by M4, coordinate wolf packs across 1,000 miles of ocean. His U-boats strike convoys simultaneously from multiple directions, overwhelming escorts. The British must suspect something. Convoy routes change, escorts concentrate in unusual patterns, but without reading his actual messages, they're always reactive, never predictive. In his war diary, Dönitz writes, "The enemy's knowledge of our operations has been reduced to practically nothing. Our losses are minimal. The tonnage war is being won." What Dönitz doesn't know is that 3,000 miles away, in a locked safe at the Admiralty, intelligence officers are cataloguing a desperate list. Captured U-boat equipment that might provide the break they need. Weather ships seized off Norway. Boarding parties that reached sinking submarines before scuttling charges detonated. Documents retrieved from lifeboats. They need one perfect capture. One boat where the crew doesn't have time to destroy the codes. One boarding party fast enough to reach the cipher room before the sea claims it. They need U-559, the retrieval, sacrifice, in the Mediterranean. November 1st, 1942. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire. Hut 8. The package arrives by motorcycle courier at 4:17 a.m., wrapped in waterproof canvas and marked with red stamps. Most secret, immediate, naval intelligence. Hugh Alexander, acting head of Hut 8 in Turing's absence, signs for it and carries it to the analysis room. Inside are documents that smell of salt water and diesel fuel. The pages are stiff, some disintegrated at the edges from immersion, but the critical contents are readable. M4 key tables for October 1942, recognition groups, rotor setting instructions, and, most valuable, a curt signal heft, the short signal codebook that U-boat captains use for rapid tactical reports. Alexander spreads them across a table under harsh fluorescent light. Around him, codebreakers crowd close. Joan Clark, Peter Twin, Rolf Nosquith, mathematicians and linguists who've spent 8 months staring at indecipherable shark traffic. The short signal book is a revelation. It shows them the plain text equivalents of common encrypted reports, weather conditions, fuel states, position coordinates, torpedo status. These are cribs. Perfect, verified cribs. "Get the bombs running," Alexander says quietly. "All of them." We start with the traffic from October 30th and work forward. The bombs, electromechanical code-breaking machines that test thousands of Enigma settings per minute, have been modified over the past months to handle 4 rotors instead of 3. They're not fast enough, not elegant enough, but with cribs from the short signal book, they have targets to search for. Each bomb is a cabinet of rotating drums that simulate Enigma rotors, clicking through settings, testing whether a particular configuration produces sensible German text from the encrypted gibberish. The first break comes 36 hours later. Bomb 17, running in the registration room on the first floor, stops with a loud clunk. Its drums have found a setting that transforms an encrypted message into readable German. The Wren operator, a young woman from the Women's Royal Naval Service, checks the indicator panels, writes down the rotor positions on a pink slip and runs it to Hut 8. They've broken shark for October 30th. Over the next week, Bletchley Park reads increasingly current M4 traffic, November 3rd, November 5th, November 8th. Each day's keys require separate analysis, but the captured documents provide the patterns, the recognition groups, the operator procedures that make the breaks possible. By mid-November, Hut 8 is reading shark traffic with only a 36-hour delay, fast enough to be operationally useful. The intelligence flows to the OIC in London, to Western Approaches Command in Liverpool, to convoy commodores in the Atlantic. Roger Wynn's submarine tracking room suddenly has accurate U-boat positions again. He can see where wolf packs are forming, read their patrol orders, predict their attack vectors. Convoy routes shift hours before submarines reach interception points. Escorts concentrate where wolf packs gather. The Kriegsmarine notices immediately. In Lorient, Dönitz reviews November's operational reports with growing frustration. U-boats are missing convoys by hours. Patrol lines that should intercept eastbound traffic from America find empty ocean. 3 boats report depth charge attacks in areas where they hadn't transmitted positions. It's like the dark months of 1941 again, like the British have eyes inside his headquarters. "Are we compromised?" Gott asks. Dönitz shakes his head. "Impossible. The M4 is mathematically unbreakable. Our cryptographers have confirmed it repeatedly." "Then how are they avoiding us?" Dönitz studies the Atlantic chart. His answer is what intelligence officers call motivated reasoning, explaining away uncomfortable facts with alternative theories. "Better radar," he says finally. Long-range aircraft, high-frequency direction finding. They're not reading our codes, they're detecting our boats. It's a comforting lie. And because the M4 should be unbreakable, it's a lie that German naval intelligence believes. They run security audits on their cipher procedures, check their machines for faults, investigate whether operators are making procedural errors. Everything checks out. The M4 is working perfectly. They never consider that 2 men died to give Britain the keys. The turning, wolf packs in the crosshairs. March 17, 1943. 58 deg north, 35 deg west, mid-Atlantic. Convoy HX-229 steams eastbound through moderate seas. 40 merchant ships carrying fuel oil, military equipment, and food supplies for Britain. The convoy commodore, sailing in the lead ship Abraham Lincoln, has just received an ultra signal, the code name for intelligence derived from Enigma decrypts, warning that Wolfpack Raubgraf, robber baron, is forming ahead. 19 U-boats spread across a patrol line 450 miles southwest of Iceland. What the convoy commodore doesn't know is that he's reading messages transmitted by those U-boats just 18 hours earlier. In U-641, Captain Lieutenant Horst Rentel stands in his conning tower, scanning the grey Atlantic horizon. His boat is part of Raubgraf, positioned at the patrol line's southern edge. Standing orders are clear: maintain radio silence until a convoy is spotted, then broadcast an immediate contact report so other boats can converge. The M4 Enigma in his radio room is set with today's keys, ready to encrypt his sighting. But at Bletchley Park, cryptanalyst Peter Twin has already read tomorrow's shark keys. The November captures included not just 1 month's tables, but overlapping coverage. Some documents extended into November and December, establishing patterns that let the codebreakers work forward. By January, they're breaking shark daily. By February, they're breaking it faster than the Germans expect anyone could. When Rentel transmits his convoy sighting at 16:47 local time, the message reaches U-boat command in Lorient within minutes. It also reaches Bletchley Park's intercept station at Scarborough within seconds. The encrypted text, 5-letter groups like VUNA, KZRPL, QTYMD, goes directly to Hut 8. Hugh Alexander's team runs it through the bombs using the already broken keys for March 17th. They decrypt it 40 minutes after Rentel transmits it. The convoy's escort commander, Captain Richard Hill, aboard HMS Highlander, receives the ultra translation U-641 to BDU, grid square, BE 5384. Convoy eastbound, course 067, speed 9 knots, 40 ships, light escort, am shadowing. Hill doesn't wait for the Wolfpack to gather. He orders his destroyer group, 4 ships equipped with Type 271 centimetric radar, to detach and sweep southwest, directly toward U-641's reported position. At 19:20, HMS Weimar gets a radar contact at 2,800 yards. U-641 crash dives, but the destroyers are already overhead, dropping depth charges in carefully calculated patterns. Rentel's boat survives, barely, but he's forced deep, losing contact with the convoy, unable to guide other U-boats to the target. By the time he surfaces at midnight, HX-229 has changed course based on another ultra-decrypt that revealed Raubgraf's patrol line positions. The convoy slips through a gap between U-445 and U-526, 15 miles south of the Wolfpack's coverage. This scenario repeats across the Atlantic through spring 1943. Wolfpack Stürmer forms southeast of Greenland, 22 boats in a north-south line. Ultra reveals their positions. Convoys SC-122 and HX-229A route around them. Wolfpack Seawolf concentrates west of Ireland. Ultra reads their movement orders. Long-range B-24 Liberators from Iceland are waiting when the U-boats surface to recharge batteries. Pack after pack, ambush after ambush, the pattern holds. The Kriegsmarine operates as if their communications are secure, while every tactical message they send is read by the enemy within hours. The U-boat losses accelerate. In March 1943, 15 submarines are sunk. April 16. May, the decisive month, becomes catastrophic. 41 U-boats lost. The losses aren't random. They concentrate where ultra-intelligence predicts U-boats will be. Dönitz watches his casualty lists grow with mounting horror. On May 24, 1943, he makes the hardest decision of his command. He orders all Atlantic U-boats to withdraw from the North Atlantic convoy routes and redeploy to areas with less air coverage, the Central Atlantic, the Caribbean, the South Atlantic. In his war diary, he writes, "We are facing defeat in the Battle of the Atlantic." But he still doesn't know why. The investigation, the ghosts in the machine. June 10, 1943. Berlin. Reich Security Main Office, SS Oberführer Walter Schellenberg sits across from Admiral Dönitz in a conference room, stripped of all ornamentation except a portrait of Hitler. Between them lies a file stamped Geheime Reichssache, secret Reich matter. It contains something that terrifies Dönitz more than Allied destroyers or long-range aircraft, a security investigation into whether Enigma has been compromised. Schellenberg, head of foreign intelligence for the SD, has been conducting this investigation since March, when U-boat losses reached crisis levels. He's interviewed cryptographers, machine operators, captured Allied sailors, anyone who might reveal whether British intelligence can read German naval codes. His conclusion, spelled out in the report, should be reassuring. "The mathematical analysis is definitive," Schellenberg says. Breaking M4 without the daily keys would require computational resources beyond anything the Allies possess. Our experts calculate it would take 5,000 skilled cryptanalysts working continuously for 1 year to break a single day's traffic. The British don't have 5,000 cryptanalysts. Dönitz isn't satisfied. Then explain the convoy routing. Explain how they avoid our patrol lines. Explain how their escorts appear exactly where our boats surface. "Radar," Schellenberg replies. The British have developed centimetric radar. We've captured examples from shot-down aircraft. It can detect periscopes at 2 kilometers, and high-frequency direction finding, HUF-DUF, gives them bearing lines on our radio transmissions within minutes. That explains tactical detection. It doesn't explain strategic avoidance. They're routing convoys around patrol lines we haven't deployed yet, based on operational orders we haven't transmitted. Schellenberg flips through the file. The alternative explanations are all covered. Espionage. We've investigated everyone with access to key tables, no suspects. Physical security. The machines are guarded. The key tables are delivered by armed courier. Operators follow strict procedures. Mechanical failure. The machines are tested monthly, no faults found. Procedural error. We've analyzed thousands of intercepts for operator mistakes. Nothing actionable. What the report doesn't cover is document capture. The investigation assumes that scuttling procedures work, that U-boat crews have time to destroy all confidential materials before abandoning ship. It doesn't consider that in the chaos of a sinking submarine, when water roars through broken hatches and men scramble for the ladder, not every captain has the seconds needed to throw weighted bags overboard or ignite thermite charges. It doesn't consider that British boarding parties might be willing to die for intelligence. Dönitz closes the file. Increase key table security, he orders. Change daily keys at random intervals instead of midnight. Use more frequent rotor ring settings. Reduce operational message traffic. These measures are implemented over the summer, but they don't change the fundamental reality. Bletchley Park is reading shark faster than new security protocols can stop them. The captured codebooks from U-559 provided not just October's keys, but the methodology, the operator habits, the weather report formats, the stereotyped message beginnings that generate cribs. With those patterns, the code breakers can attack each day's keys using bombs, with success rates above 80%. The Kriegsmarine is transmitting on a compromised system and doesn't know it. The end, the Black May, May 1943. Atlantic Ocean, multiple locations. The month begins with 118 operational U-boats at sea, the largest concentration Dönitz has ever deployed. It ends with 41 destroyed and 7,000 men dead. Historians will call it Black May, the month the Battle of the Atlantic turned irreversibly against Germany. The losses have patterns. U-209 sunk May 6th by HMS Duncan after Ultra revealed its refueling position. U-456 destroyed May 12th when British escort carriers, positioned by intelligence, caught it on the surface. U-954 depth-charged May 19th, exactly where decrypts predicted it would be. The coincidences, from the German perspective, are statistically impossible. But coincidence is how the Allies protect Ultra. Every decrypt-directed operation requires an alternative explanation, a cover story that preserves the secret, a radar contact credited to new centimetric sets, an air patrol that happened to be overhead, a chance encounter between escort and submarine. The operational intelligence coordinators at the Admiralty choreograph elaborate deceptions to explain how British forces keep appearing in exactly the right place at the right time. The Germans never break through the deception because they cannot imagine the truth, that their unbreakable codes were broken by mathematics, persistence, and 2 sailors who drowned retrieving documents from a sinking submarine. On May 24th, Dönitz withdraws his boats. On June 10th, he meets with Hitler at the Berghof, explaining that continued Atlantic operations without solving the intelligence problem would result in the destruction of the entire U-boat fleet. Hitler, surprisingly, accepts the assessment. U-boats are redeployed to less critical theaters, used as supply transports, held in port, awaiting new technology that never comes. The Kriegsmarine continues using M4 Enigma until Germany's surrender in May 1945. They never learn it was compromised. The official German naval history, written by surviving admirals after the war, attributes defeat in the Atlantic to Allied radar and long-range aircraft. Enigma isn't mentioned as a factor. The truth remains classified until 1974. The legacy, what the documents revealed 1974, London, Public Records Office. When the British government finally declassifies the ultra-secret 30 years after the war's end, historians discover the full scope of what Tony Fasson and Colin Grazier died to retrieve. The documents from U-559 weren't just codebooks. They were the operational key that unlocked Germany's most sophisticated cipher system at the exact moment when the war in the Atlantic hung in balance. The papers revealed that the Kriegsmarine's confidence in M4 was justified mathematically, but fatally undermined by practical security. The Germans had built a system with 2.1 quadrillion possible configurations, but they undermined it with stereotyped messages, predictable operator habits, and the physical vulnerability of key tables stored aboard submarines. Every U-boat carried the same daily keys. Every radio operator followed the same encoding procedures. Every weather report used the same format. These consistencies created patterns, the cribs that bombs needed. The human cost was staggering. Over 30,000 Allied merchant seamen died in the Atlantic before Ultra became fully operational against Shark. Another 3,000 died afterward, even with intelligence advantages. The U-boat crews paid equally. Of 40,000 men who served in U-boats, 28,000 never came home. And in the Mediterranean that October night, 2 British sailors drowned in the dark to change the war's trajectory. What the declassification also revealed was how close the secret came to exposure. In November 1942, after Bletchley Park resumed reading Shark, British anti-submarine operations became so effective that several U-boat captains reported their suspicion that codes were compromised. These reports reached Donitz's headquarters, triggering the investigation that should have uncovered the breach. But the mathematical elegance of Enigma, combined with British operational deception, created a cognitive barrier. German intelligence officers couldn't accept that the Unbreakable had been broken. This is the final irony. The Kriegsmarine's perfect confidence in their cipher system, the certainty that M4 was mathematically secure, became the very thing that prevented them from seeing its compromise. They looked for radar when they should have been looking for codebooks. They investigated espionage when they should have been investigating document security. They changed procedural details when they should have been changing the fundamental system. By the time May 1943 arrived, bringing its catastrophic losses, the Allies had been reading German naval traffic for 6 months. The Battle of the Atlantic, which might have starved Britain into submission, instead became a victory of mathematics over steel, persistence over strength, and human courage over technological confidence. The documents retrieved from U-559 changed the course of the Second World War. They weren't captured by a commando raid or elaborate intelligence operation. They were taken by 3 men who swam to a dying submarine in the middle of the Mediterranean night, 2 of whom never came back. That's what breaking Enigma really cost. Not just bombs and mathematicians and brilliant code breakers at country estates, but sailors in dark water making the choice to go inside while everyone else swims away, knowing the hatches might close at any second. That's the price of intelligence. That's why Ultra remained secret for 3 decades, because the next war might require the same sacrifice, and the enemy needs to believe that unbreakable means unbreakable, right until the moment it doesn't.